questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Well, good morning, and wonderful to be back. Another beautiful day here in Paradise and Stewart, and we're going to have a really great show on tap, very informative. We have Rob Lord in the studio. He is president of Cleveland Clinic Martin Health. But before we get into some serious topics, good topics as well, because you've done a lot of wonderful things with your career, Cleveland Clinic Martin Health, and you're going to hang your hat up at the end of the year. So going to be excited to hear some things, Rob, and appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity.
Glad to have you here. Also, I want to give a shout out to, with Ida that just struck up in the Louisiana area. You never know where these hurricanes are going to land. And Indiantown Marina is one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities located inland on the Okeechobee Waterway, and they are a well-protected hurricane hull. If you have a boat, you'll want to check out Indiantown Marina. They're fabulous, and they have a lot of items that they service out there. They're a do-it-yourself and full-service boat yard, electrical, mechanical, prop and shaft work, bottom painting, complete boat painting, boat sitting, and so much more. But the important thing is, again, it's middle of hurricane season. Get your reservation in now because, Rob, when these storms hit, you can't get into all these marinas. The hurricane safe spots fill up very quickly. So if you have a reservation, you're guaranteed a spot. Make sure you give the good folks out at Indiantown Marina a call at 772-631-3272, 631-3272, and have peace of mind. Also, I want to give a shout out. I rarely do this, but on Facebook Live, if you notice the videos and stuff that we do, I really have to say thank you to Impactful Media. You'll see that they do a lot of wonderful video and photos during the show, and Impactful Media is really the reason why the show looks so good on Facebook. So I want to shout out to them and say thank you. And if you're looking for somebody that needs video services, Impactful Media. So now I get to the important guest here today. We have Rob Lord, and a little background on Rob. 50-year resident of Martin County, joined Martin Health System in 1998 as Vice President and Chief Legal Officer, and has served as Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer since 2014. In 2016, Rob became CEO and President of Martin Health, replacing Mark Robitaille. Rob is a graduate of Stetson University of Law and Florida State University, and holds board certification as a healthcare executive from the American College of Healthcare Executives. The Florida Bar has also recognized him as board certified specialist in health law, a resident of Martin County since childhood. He has been active in many community organizations, and we're going to talk about some of them here during the show, Rob. And a little bit about Martin Health System. Martin Health System, based in Stuart, Florida, comprises 3 hospitals, 1 Medicenter, a freestanding emergency center, and numerous outpatient centers and clinics. 3 hospitals have 521 beds, 244 at Martin Medical Center, 100 at Martin Hospital South, and 177 at Tradition Medical Center. Nearly 400 doctors and more than 4,000 employees are dedicated to Martin Health. And there's a bunch of volunteers as well that have given 187,000 hours annually, the equivalent of 97 employees. So, Rob, this is a huge ship to steer, and you have been with the organization, like I said, over 2 decades. And right now is probably one of the most difficult times with COVID.
Yes, thank you, Casey. It's a unique time, I think, for all of us. But to be in the hospital business is a particular challenge for a number of different reasons. And here recently, because we have just been overwhelmed with COVID patients. But it's also been an incredible honor. I think I'm about as lucky a person as I've ever met. I get to have this job in my hometown. This is where my wife and I have raised a family. My generations of my family are here, and then to have the opportunity to lead this organization that is so critical to the community is an incredible honor, and I will miss that very much. But the time's come for me to move on to other things and let somebody else have a shot at this.
And as probably heard, Rob is stepping down at the end of the year, so we're going to miss you. You really have been a great leader, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about the current COVID status. But before we do, Tony Stevens, you know Foghat, Rob?
Yes.
one of the founding members of Foghat, Tony Stevens. He's joining in, says hello, and he's going to be on the show here in a couple weeks.
Oh,
Not
fantastic.
in the studio, but he's over in the UK because of COVID, the lockdown. So he gives a big shout out. What is the current status of COVID right now in the hospitals?
Overall, in Martin North and Tradition Hospital today, we have 181 COVID patients. That's slightly off from the peak we've had this surge. But to put it in perspective with the rest of the pandemic, prior to this surge, the highest number of patients we had on any given day occurred on January 25th of this year, and that was 111.
Wow.
And so the highest number we've had in this surge is over 200, and it fluctuates from day to day. But our systems are stressed. Our capacity is limited. We've stopped doing elective cases. We're doing emergency surgeries, of course, but it's very, very difficult to manage hospitals and access to hospital beds. The easiest way I think I can explain that to people not involved in the business is most patients, when they come into the hospital, we can say with not certainty, but a high degree of accuracy how long they'll be in the hospital. Patient shows up. If you're going to have a knee replacement or any elective case, we can tell you with tremendous accuracy. But even emergency room admissions, most of the time a pneumonia with this patient, this age, we can get. With COVID, some of the patients are there for just a couple of days. We put them on oxygen and we get them out and they get better. Other patients take a turn for the worse and continue to consume more and more resources, eventually wind up in the ICU. We've had hospital stays in excess of 60 days with COVID. And as you're trying to manage access to beds, just not knowing that answer from day to day and what's going to happen with patients is incredibly challenging for our team. I think the other thing that I think is critically important for me to just get this out in our community. If you know a doctor or a nurse or a respiratory therapist, any type of technician, in fact, anybody that works in the hospital, and you are doing, I would ask you to express that. This is taking a toll on all of us, everybody in our society. But in the hospital, the doctors and nurses are that they feel should not die. Yeah. And yet there's nothing they can do to stop the progression of this illness. And for anybody who thinks, well, why don't you give them a cure? There is no cure. Everything that's out there treats the symptoms of the illness, but there's not a cure for COVID. And the psychological toll that it's taking, the emotional toll is concerning. I have never been more inspired than I am right now by the people who do this work. They are the frontline soldiers in this battle against a relentless opponent.
And this COVID, you say that, and I can only imagine the stress because this has been going on for well over a year and a half now. And to see people that are so young now that are passing away from COVID or struggling with it, I can't imagine the emotional burden that is carried upon their shoulders. I always say that, our doctors and our nurses are angels on earth, and they truly are, but they're still people and they have to carry the burden of what they're seeing in the hospital.
Yes.
We all need to keep that in mind. With the people that are being hospitalized right now, can you give us an idea how many are vaccinated versus unvaccinated?
With today's census, I know that it's a little over 10% are vaccinated. Over the course of this surge, the numbers have been running about 90% of the patients in the hospital are unvaccinated. And about 10% are.
Wow.
Now, that's only part of the story. And I think a very important part of the story for anyone who's considering the vaccine is this. I'm aware of only one patient during the entire course of this surge who was vaccinated who passed away. We lost 5 patients yesterday.
Oh, my
gosh. The vaccinated patients are getting into the hospital and they're getting out. And most of them are there, we suspect, because they had a pre-existing condition or situation that compromised their immune system. They could be under cancer treatment, chemotherapy, whatever. Um, but they're getting better, and we're getting them out of the hospital. And so virtually 100% of the patients in the ICUs, on ventilators or high flow oxygen, and those patients who unfortunately pass away are unvaccinated. And my thoughts out to the family members and loved ones of anyone who's suffering from this illness, and particularly those who've lost a loved one. That's we wish that wasn't the case.
Certainly I can see the emotion when you speak, Rob. It's something that you hold very near and dear in your heart. I mean, this truly is emotional and means something to you to see these people that are coming in and losing them. And this COVID is just a horrific pandemic. With the vaccinated versus unvaccinated, is there anybody keeping track of somebody that had COVID earlier that's not vaccinated? Are they also getting just as sick as an unvaccinated person?
What I don't know is the number of people who had COVID and never came to the hospital.
Okay.
So we don't know that. What I do know is this: we have many of the patients who have come in who are not vaccinated, indicated that one of the reasons they didn't, or some of them indicated the reason they didn't get the vaccine was because they had immunity from a prior exposure. Whether that immunity has worn off, or whether it's the Delta variant and that different variant has made a difference, I can't say. But what I can say is I wouldn't take much security in the fact that I had COVID previously. Now, particularly, I mean, unless you had a severe case, built up a lot of antibodies, there's a lot we still don't know. But what I do know is there are a number of patients who are coming to our hospital quite ill from COVID who thought that they were immune.
Okay. It's good to know. The vaccines themselves, there's Moderna and Pfizer that was 2 shots, and then Johnson & Johnson that was 1 shot. Are you seeing that the 2 shots were more effective than the 1 shot, or is it the same immunity for all?
I haven't seen any data locally that demonstrates that, but what I do understand from the data that I'm getting through, as we all do, through listservs and emails and things that
Right.
I receive professionally, is I lost my train of thought, Casey.
If the 2 vaccine or the 1, is there?
They followed very closely to what the study said. I mean,
Okay.
the accuracy of the study was sort of uncanny, and which what the hospital. This
Okay.
10% would be representative of a vaccine that's 95%, and you have some of that going on.
Right.
But what we've also seen is that studies come out, if we get the booster shots out, it seems like the J&J boosters gives a significant increase to that, which makes me wonder if that second dose, doesn't matter.
Isn't that?
But
Yeah,
there's
is that
also
right?
what we're seeing, or what I understand from the limited amount of information that's out there on the booster shots for the Moderna and the Pfizer, is that their booster shot's also extremely effective.
Okay.
So we're excited to get that out and roll it out. I know there's a lot of anticipation of that in the community, and we're working closely with the health department and our organization to make sure we're ready to roll that out when the time comes.
When should folks get that 3rd booster shot, or 2nd if they had the J&J?
Well, right now we're still in a waiting state for that to be opened up beyond people who are immunosuppressed.
Okay.
I think later this month that's going to be opened up, and again we're going to look at it. I think it's going to be to some extent state by state, and the states will make up the rules in terms of ages as we did before.
Okay.
But my advice would be, since the evidence suggests that in the 6 to 8 month time frame it starts to wear off, and there's an awful lot of people that were vaccinated that
Yes.
period of time ago, myself included.
Right.
I will get the vaccine. My wife will get the vaccine. I'm sure my daughters and sons-in-law will get the vaccine as soon as they're eligible.
Available. Are the hospital staff, are they required to have the vaccine?
They are not required. Now that may change. I know that's under consideration. Early on in this process, we decided that because it was under an experimental use authorization, or an EUA, that we not make it mandatory. But now that the Pfizer and looks like Moderna is in line for that as well, that very well could change.
For patients and their ages, are you seeing children, because the 12 and under are not, it's not available, the vaccine's not available to them yet. Are you seeing a lot of children that are being hospitalized, or so far they're defending it off?
Our pediatric census has been low. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Now, what you would expect to have happen if it follows what the adult population does is from the onset of symptoms, somewhere in that 10-day out vicinity, is if they're going to wind up coming to the hospital, that's when the average time period is. I think we're kind of on the edge of that now with school having started.
Right.
And so I'm anxious about the next couple of weeks, but hopeful that, our schools and our families are going to be able to manage that well, and hopefully we can keep those kids out of the hospital. I think it is really important to note for the community that we have limited pediatric resources on the Treasure Coast, not just here. Just recently, the Cleveland Clinic has brought to town some pediatric subspecialists, which we did not have. Families generally, to get a pediatric specialist in cardiology, or pick a specialty, I shouldn't name any one, you had to go at least to West Palm Beach.
Oh, gosh.
But maybe to Orlando or Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We're excited about offering that, but we have one pediatric unit at Tradition Hospital. That services Indian River, Martin, and Tradition.
Wow.
And then there's also a pediatric unit at Lawnwood, and I know they do a fine job, and we're in contact with them.
Okay.
This is one of those situations where it's coin a word, co-opetition. We compete with each other, but we cooperate with each other, and I know that. But we've shared our concerns. If we overwhelm our pediatric units, you can't just bring another nurse in and put a non-pediatric nurse on a pediatric unit. It's highly specialized.
Brent Wallenberg, I have to bring this up because it's something that a lot of people out there are talking about. People are frightened of the vaccine, and he said when they found sitting people in the sun's UV light made them well in 1918 pandemic, and then the pandemic was over. And he feels the government pushing the vaccine without mentioning this has made doctors look like snake oil salesmen. I don't know. I think I'll let you speak to that because there's a lot of science behind the vaccines.
I understand it. First of all, I think exposure to the sunlight, I wonder if that was as much a cure for the flu pandemic as it was being in open air.
Right.
And getting people out. But there's a lot yet to be learned from the flu pandemic of 1918. I know that I studied up on it early on in this process to try and glean some things from it and learned a great deal. But when it comes to this, first of all, I've heard the contention that there's a conspiracy of sorts that healthcare providers are making a bigger deal out of this than they should, and I assure you that's not the case. That's misinformation that's being given to people. I had someone the other day tell me they had proof that our hospital didn't have COVID because they drove by and there's no cars in the parking lot. And I've seen this said in other circumstances. For anybody that's seen that, point out to them the fact we don't allow visitors right now, and that parking lot is mainly for visitors. Our employees park in a parking garage here at North Hospital, and their cars are hidden from view. And most patients, especially the COVID patients, come to our hospital through the emergency room. They're not driving themselves, or if they do, somebody drives their car home. So that's not evidence. The clinical science behind this is remarkable. It is an extraordinary vaccine. Its track record, contrary to a lot of the information that you see out there cited as thousands and thousands of people killed, just simply not the case. The reality is it's one of the safer vaccines we've ever had, and the clinical proof that it is saving lives by the thousands is overwhelming. That being said, to the point, I do encourage people, get outside, have your gatherings outside. We've tried to do as much as we can of that this summer. It gets awfully hot out there.
Right. It sure
does. I find that having a little water around helps me with that. If I can jump in a pool or the river or something. So.
Vitamin C, SE.
Absolutely.
Again, we're speaking with Rob Lord. He's president of Cleveland Clinic Martin Health Systems. If you have a question for Rob, now's the time to call in and ask him. He's here and he's letting the community know this COVID, the Delta variant's pretty tough right now. And we all need to do what we can to protect ourselves. And hospitals filling up. And my goodness, if you see, the nurses and the doctors, just say thank you. They're out there, they're stressed, and this is super tough. And I'm sure there's a lot of overtime I've heard as well.
Yes, I just received a study this morning that was done by the Florida Hospital Association. There are over 8,000 open nursing positions in hospitals throughout the state of Florida. And now we've brought in a number of wonderful nurses who are traveling nurses. They work with agencies and they come in and put out fires or help us put out fires. And we have a large number of them. And if any of them are listening, I thank them for being here.
Absolutely.
Now, from a financial standpoint, there's a significant cost associated with using travelers, but that's we're grateful for that. Very grateful.
Rob, if you can put your headsets on again, if you want to talk to Rob, it's 772-220-WSTU. That's 220-9788. And Rob, we have Tim on the phone.
Rob, boy, good to hear your voice on the radio and your voice of reason during some troubling times. Rob, I have a comment. I had a chance to be in the hospital last Friday for a surgery procedure, kidney stones. I'm sure everybody listening winced when I said that. But I wanted to make a comment to your opening statement. Your hospital is absolutely first class. I've had the chance to compare it to Jupiter Medical Center as well as the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. And you are absolutely first class. There was never a shortage of any caregiver giving the best care, and I am grateful. Second, there's a hero amongst heroes. Helen in your OR is a true rock star. She was there, and she called me after and was truly interested in how I was doing. All right. So, Rob, sorry to see you go. I hope I get a chance to go boating with you sooner or later out here. But the truth is, magnificent show, magnificent job you're doing.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate your kind words very much, and I'll make sure that I touch base with Helen and let her know you were so grateful.
I am grateful, and I'm grateful for the leadership you've given over there. Anybody that's actually walked into your facility and left without the same impression I had, I don't know what they saw, but I guarantee you, I got first class. And this is not my first rodeo with you. Back in 2018, I was in there for the same thing. So it's been a good ride, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tim. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your kind words.
Thanks, Tim. And also, I've heard some stories in there that your employees, and you mentioned this when we were speaking out in the hallway, you do lead by example. And they've said that, Rob Lord is right there working with us. I mean, we were talking about the hurricane and you couldn't get home. And it's because your employees couldn't go home, so you didn't go home.
No, that's to the extent that is true, that is because of my father, and I was raised that way, and the other people I've worked with, the leadership that we've had with Dick Harmon and Mark Robitaille, who were both fantastic leaders, and I learned so much under them, and that was part of it. But they don't let me take care of patients. I have the wrong education. I've tried to claim that I'm a doctor, but I'm a doctor of law, unfortunately. And the people that work in the organization are what makes it great. That's the strength of our organization. Are our people, and I'm awed by them and inspired by them every day, and I just try and do my part.
Well, again, Rob is going to retire at the end of the year, and if you want to know how big the shoes are that he fills, Cleveland Clinic Martin Health said it's going to conduct a search for a president of the Tradition Hospital in Port St. Lucie and a president of oversight of Martin North and South. So they're replacing you with two people, is how I see this.
Well, just so that we're clear, and I get to say this now over the airways, so I'm really happy about this. And if any of my colleagues from Cleveland Clinic are listening, this is why you shouldn't let me come down and do this. This is, I am an attorney, and we have some amazing candidates to fill these 2 spots. They will be physicians. All of those candidates are physicians. And the Cleveland Clinic is a physician-led organization, and I happen to believe that is the best model within this industry. But this is proof that it takes 2 doctors to replace 1 lawyer.
Ka-ching. That's great. That's great.
Well, that's my joke, and I'm going to carry that all the way through the retirement
I
party.
would too. I love it. I love it. It's a good one. So, and Rob, that was actually something you touched on was very important as well. Cleveland Clinic took over, I guess, Martin Health in 2019. So you've seen a lot of changes over the years, over the last 23 years. And it sounds like this one in the last couple of years has been very positive for the community.
Well, certainly the timing was fortuitous. I can't imagine how challenging this would have been. I can't imagine, actually.
Right.
I can't imagine what this would have been like as a standalone. But from the very beginning, when we had questions or concerns about this virus and so little was known, and we could tap into resources that were worldwide experts in their field to try and give us guidance early on, and then through the process, access to personal protective equipment, ventilators, all that. We have not run out of equipment. Now, this human resource challenge is one that is for everybody in the world. It's not just in Florida or in the United States. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes.
The clinic's resources have been critical.
So, Rob, I'm going to move on here a little bit. I had mentioned that you're very active in the community. You've been involved with organizations including the Round Table of St. Lucie County, Friends of the Blake Library, St. Lucie County Community Board, Martin County Community Board, Hibiscus Children's Center, United Way of Martin County, and the Chambers of Commerce for both St. Lucie and Martin counties. And you told me as well that you're just now part of the Rivers Coalition Board.
Well, I'm on the. I've just been appointed to the Florida Oceanographic Society board.
My mistake.
But have also a great many friends in the River Coalition and been active in river-related issues as an issue of public health. I think that was part of my role as hospital president. Over the last few years, we've had some real challenges with blue-green algae, to the point that in the hospital, we had to start posting signs in the emergency room asking people to let us know if they'd been in contact with the river. That happened, we decided to deal with this head on and say it's not proposing what the solution should be, but saying we need to do something about this. Is a public health risk. Now that we're in the middle of a pandemic that's a respiratory pandemic, that's what this river caused primarily, when there were rashes and other things, but respiratory problems were clearly the most prevalent aspect of that. And so I look forward in my retirement to continuing to advocate for good public policy on those issues.
Rob is really a groundbreaking CEO, especially when it came to the river issues. Evan, I think we have a clip. This is back from 2017, 4 years ago, folks. Rob was standing out there on the Riverwalk stage in Stewart and supporting SB 10, which was the reservoir from Senator Negron, that a bill that he proposed, and it actually ended up passing. So it's something that's under construction now. But if you can roll that clip.
The strength of Martin Health System is its 4,200 associates who provide compassionate care to every member of our community every time they get the chance. And I've talked to a great many of them about this and told them that it was our intention to take a strong stand on this. And every single person I have talked to has been excited about that, has encouraged us to do it. We're very proud to do it. Appreciate your kind words, but it is an honor for us to have the opportunity to stand in support, again, of Senate President Joe Negron and Senate Bill 10. We think the time has come to fix this problem. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful day.
So I want to thank Jackie Thurl-Lipich for that video there. She's the one that said great on there. So we all know she's now on the South Florida Water Management District Board as well. Rob, you really did take a stand back in 2017, and now you said there's signs posted in the hospital about the water discharges. It's become almost a season of discharges where you have to put signs up annually.
Oh yeah, no. Let me be clear. I don't want to mislead. Right now, we're okay. We're not in that situation. So the signs are not up at this point. But if we start seeing people appear and we see evidence of a bloom that's spreading to our community.
We've been fortunate so far these last couple of years on lack of discharges.
Correct.
Thank goodness.
And hopefully some of the things that are in the works will continue to reduce the need to do that.
Absolutely. You had just mentioned at the recent River Coalition meeting, until we had the blue-green algae bloom in 2018, what we talked about was the adverse impact of Lake Okeechobee discharges had on seagrasses, fish kills, etc. And you really brought to the forefront, we need to talk about human health. And what reactions did you receive from the community when you stepped up? Because this is something that CEOs have not traditionally done. They're typically quiet, but you were seeing people come into the hospital firsthand. There's been studies, on the reactions to the cyanobacteria, the blooms.
The community reaction was overwhelmingly positive. There were some who were not happy with the additional publicity that this caused. And with all respect, and I certainly don't intend any disrespect, but at that time, if you turned on, pick your favorite news source, Fox News, CNN, MSN, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You were going to see a piece on what was going on down here in the St. Lucie River.
Yes.
And on the West Coast, the Caloosahatchee. So my point then was, this is no secret. I'm not letting the cat out of the bag here.
Right.
But if we don't do something about this, I have 50 years of experience looking at this, and I think it's fair for me to claim that because I grew up on these rivers fishing. I love to fish. I have waded so many places in the St. Lucie River and the Indian River that people are crazy. But what I've seen over the years is the environment has suffered. The natural resources have diminished.
Right.
The fish, the grasses, everything that goes with that. But then it crossed a line, and it became demonstrable that it was having an effect on human health. And I thought it was at that point, that's when we stepped up. While I was a fisherman, I hated to see us having a diminished snook population. Right. Snook season just opened today, by the way.
All right.
I know that.
A fishing update.
A fishing update. It was just a new ball game, and so we brought it forward. I like to think that it had a positive impact in Tallahassee with SB 10 because it was challenged at that point, but it did become a human health issue. And for those who are interested in advocating for the river, I think that's a position of strength, the place we need to come from. The dialogue.
It absolutely did, and thank you for doing that. By the way, we've all been fighting for the river, and have somebody like you that is so community oriented and active in the community speak out and say, "Look, we need to really look at the health issues involved with the river." As a matter of fact, we have one of the highest levels or rates of liver disease that's not related to alcohol in the country here.
Yes.
Do we know for sure it's the water? It needs to be studied, but there's something happening here that we have all this liver disease. Another thing to be worried about is the BMAA. It's a neurological ailment that happens from the toxins released, the blue-green algae. And Rob, I'm looking to you as I'm talking here. I've had some shows on it, so I'm not knowledgeable, but from what other people have said, that it causes things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's diseases, those neurological diseases, and the BMAA is released.
Yeah, the research is ongoing, but this is one of those situations where I can't imagine that anyone would argue that it is good for us or that it has a positive impact on anybody or anything.
Right.
And it just makes sense that most likely that it's going to be bad for us. And we already have seen that. The research suggests that. Now it's still in process. But when I look at this issue, I'm reminded of early in my youth, there was quite a debate in our society over whether or not to declare it's caused cancer.
Right.
And there were interests from the tobacco industry which argued that it did not. In fact, if anybody's interested, you can go out and look for the works of Dr. Theodore Sterling. He studies that said cigarette smoking is good for you or fine for you. And then we put it on the side of the box. At this point, it's hard to say. Do we wait 20, 30 years to make that declaration, or do we look at it and go, look, this is not good for us. It is most likely bad for us. Let's do something about it before we wait. Because if you wait that long, I fear the impact that it'll have on those communities most severely affected. And right now, that would be our community here on the East Coast and those that are over on the West Coast around the Caloosahatchee River where these discharges come.
And we're talking about generations here that are being impacted by the water. I find it super interesting that you're a lifelong resident here for 50 years. What changes have you seen in the water over those 50 years? What did it look like when you were a kid?
Oh, gosh. When this time of the year, the mullet run would begin, I felt like I could walk across the Indian River on top of the mullet. It was huge. The grass in the rivers was prevalent, and it wasn't hard to find a good spot to fish. Give me any drop off of water and grass would be growing on, which is not the case today.
No, it's not.
But it was it's deteriorated significantly during that time, and it's still wonderful. I mean, I still enjoy it, but I'm reluctant to get in it.
Yes.
And I used to get in it all the time. I'd love to see that get turned around.
So I wasn't here as a kid. What was the color of the water when you were a kid? Is it the same as now, or tannic, or no?
You had the tannins in the St. Lucie because that's natural. That's just a natural outflow that occurs as well. But it was clear, significantly clear. And then on an incoming tide, the Indian River at times looked just like the ocean. And still can. If Lake Okeechobee gets low,
it can heal.
It can heal, and there are periods of time, brief periods of time, where we get a little bit of a drought. There's the agricultural land is not flowing into the C23, C24,
right?
And the water will clear right up. A couple of years ago, I spent a lot of time on the South Fork, and I was out there in 4 or 5 feet of water, and I could see the bottom.
It's incredible.
It is.
That's a snapshot into the way it used to be right there. And it can be again if we can just stop these discharges. What about the bottom of the river? It's very mucky now, and everybody talks about legacy sediment, what's in it. What was it like when you were a kid?
Well, that's, again, it depends on where you were. There's a natural kind of a muck. I probably shouldn't admit this. People think poorly of me. We used to wade through the mangrove swamp to get to the river. Down, my father was involved in the development of Nettles Island, and back when the power plant was being built, we'd do it up there, and we'd try to get to those grass flats out in the Indian River. And you going through the mangroves, you walk through a muck, but it's natural. What that is, those are the leaves off of the mangrove tree that fall into the water, and they go down and they decompose and become a muck. But then there's that sediment that sits out in the middle of the river, and you wonder where it came from. Or we saw when we had the matted algae, and when it died, it just sank to the bottom. And if you were in a canal or a space that doesn't have good tidal flow, then that just goes and sits on the bottom. And that is a great concern to me. What is the effect of that in 10, 20, 30 years? The toxins are significant, and particularly in that cyanobacteria.
It is significant. And folks, if you were down here in the St. Lucie River area when we had those mats of toxic algae, the blue-green algae, the smell was horrific. You could hardly stand it. And to think that has sunk to the bottom, and then there's the legacy sediment. I'm bringing this up because I'm going to circle back to the BMAA. It actually also goes into fish and shellfish, and that's ultimately what we eat. And it's something that doesn't cook out. So this is a serious concern that we need to really address. And By the way, Mark Perry, congratulations. Mark Perry's out there at Florida Oceanographic Society for putting this man on the board. I think this is going to be a really good, I don't know if I want to call it marriage, but this is a good addition to the board. So
I think you ought to congratulate me. I think Mark and that team's amazing. I look forward to working with them and advocating, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm a big fan of Mark and Florida Oceanographic Society.
He's done a lot of good work. Yes. He has done a lot of good work. Brent says, put shells back on the shore of the lagoon where Henry Flagler and others removed it to pave the roads. He believes that'll help bring the water back to the way it used to be. So we don't know. It needs to be studied, but certainly when you change the environment, there's consequences.
And I know one of the things that Florida Oceanographic Society has as a project is to replenish the shellfish. In fact, if I were going to pick one pet project that I'm going to get out there and put some sweat equity in, if you will, it would probably be that.
Awesome.
But it's amazing how much water oysters, an individual oyster can filter. And so if we could find a way to do that, but again, as soon as you open up the locks and you kill them off, it defeats the purpose. So
it does. The oysters are so important, and they filter so many things, but when we discharge the water, it's fresh water, and it kills the oysters. They can't live in fresh water. So it's just so heartbreaking when that happens every time we have the major discharges. So if we can keep our oysters, it would be a huge help. That's for sure. So Rob, let's talk about the hospital again. Over 23 years, what changes impressed you the most over those 23 years?
Well, the growth of the system, the improved ability to deliver high quality care here locally. We've always had high quality physicians and provided high quality care. But the number of specialists and subspecialists of the specialty care is really growing, and that's very exciting to me. I mentioned the pediatric specialists earlier, but there are others, a great many others. That excites me. I'm in my retirement. I'm looking forward to watching that continue to develop. And I should note that although I am retiring, I'm still a supporter of the healthcare system and will be involved as much as they want me to be anyway. Because I take great pride in what we and in the Cleveland Clinic being here. The idea behind that was that, in my mind, the Cleveland Clinic is one of the two premier healthcare systems in the world. Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic are right near the top. They both formed right after World War I with the same general concept in mind. These doctors came back from World War I and said where they'd functioned really as a team, and came back, and it was an individual sport here in the to use my sports metaphor, but I shouldn't. But they said this is a team effort across disciplines. And they did that in Minnesota and in
Mayo,
in Cleveland, in Cleveland, Ohio. And out of that grew two incredible healthcare systems. And now the rest of the world hopefully is catching on to that. But that team concept is what they brought. We had that here, I think, culturally, but our ability to execute on that has improved. Our ability to recruit physicians and specialists has improved. I'm very, very excited about the future.
It sounds like it really opened up access to the latest technologies, the latest improvements in the healthcare system, to be affiliated with something or somebody as large as Cleveland Clinic. How did that come about, the Cleveland Clinic merger?
Well, we had a relationship with the clinic involving trying to create a clinically integrated network along with several other hospitals here on the coast, and it didn't work out. But not from a lack of effort, but there were different situations from one hospital to the next. It made it very challenging.
Okay.
But we saw a cultural alignment. Both the Cleveland Clinic and Martin Health System saw a cultural alignment. At about the same time, the Indian River Hospital did a request for proposals from organizations to take over that hospital.
Okay.
And I had relationships there and was looking at that, and the thought it occurred there. Size is important. The economies of scale are important in healthcare. and having a region, a contiguous region, to me made an awful lot of sense. And with Indian River in play, if they went with Cleveland Clinic and then we had discussions, we might be able to form something very special. The president of the Cleveland Clinic, Florida, and I were good friends, but we started a conversation. We did an affiliation with the heart program for 24 years in a row. I think Cleveland Clinic's been number one in the world in heart care.
Wow.
And so who better to partner with on that service line? And just one thing led to another, and we came to the conclusion that the long-term view of this was that the be very well served by having one of the premier healthcare systems in the world committed to bringing care here. And my vision for this as we move to the future is that we are becoming and will become a destination for healthcare, that people will get in their cars and drive from Orlando and Miami to come get care here, and potentially travel from the Caribbean and South America and Central America, as is true at Cleveland Clinic in Mayo up in Ohio now.
Right.
But that's the dream for it. Right now, we have healthcare services available here that are not available in many community hospitals with communities this size.
It's fantastic.
I'm very proud of that.
Great partnership. It's absolutely fantastic to bring that right here to Stewart, right here to Martin County. So this may be old news. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask you, there was talk of an addition in downtown Stewart, and the commissioners were all talking about exceeding the 4-story height limit. I believe that was approved. Where does that stand?
Well, the couple of things along the way. It's still being reviewed. The challenge is that we're seeing in healthcare, and have been seeing for a period of time now, is that more and more of the care is being delivered in an outpatient setting. So many things that used to be done in a hospital. I mean, maybe the biggest change I've seen in my career are the number of specialists who never come to the hospital anymore.
Wow.
Because they can provide their services in an outpatient surgery center, and the hospital is a burden for physicians. If you're on the staff there, you have to take emergency room call. You have other obligations. And some physicians have sought to not have to do that. So as I look forward, the question is going to be, how many hospital beds do we need in Martin County? And the math on this is pretty straightforward. You look at your use rate. How many hospital beds do you need per 1,000 residents? And then you look at how many residents you have.
Okay.
So in Western Port St. Lucie, with a growth rate that is remarkable,
right,
even though there's this out-migration of hospital cases going to an outpatient setting, the growth rate is more than offsetting that. We need more hospital. They're going to need up there. So that hospital is overflowing after an expansion. In Martin County, where you have relatively stagnant, not much growth, the out-migration of cases is faster than our growth rate to offset it. And now that suggests you need less hospital, not more.
Okay.
So as you move forward with this, the question is, what do we need in 10 years, 20 years? A lot of that depends on what Martin County growth does. But even if it doesn't grow, what you're going to have is I think a regional, extraordinary medical center at Tradition that's going to be a tremendous asset to everybody.
Oh, that's fabulous. So moving forward, what are the largest challenges you see your successors facing outside of COVID? I know that's certainly the largest right now, but
I have a bias here. I believe that the next step in healthcare ought to be managing the health of a community to keep them healthy. I'd love to see the reimbursement system change, where it rewards healthcare providers for keeping people healthy, as opposed to get sick and incentivizes kind of bad stuff. We're looking at creating population health management. And I think that's a big challenge for them. And then continuing to develop these institutes of excellence in 8, 9 different fields, where we continue to expand the services, the specialization, and can draw those patients. Can we create a regional center of excellence that people get in their cars and come here. I've said for years when we were Martin Health, too many of our patients when they get sick, they decide to go back home up north to get their care. And I'll know when somebody goes to Boston or New York City and they get sick and they said, you know what, I'm going to go back to Stewart and get taken care of, then we will have been successful.
You will. And I'll tell you what, Martin North Hospital, I've always said if I ever have to be hospitalized, please let it be there because you have this beautiful view overlooking the river. I mean, talk about convalescing and having that view. That's got to help people just feel better, just being able to look out like that. So I always thought that is the hospital to be at. So, and how you're bringing the technology and the professionals along with it, it'll be a worldwide destination. I can see that. So, Rob, this has been absolutely wonderful. You know, there's so much coming on. What are you going to do after you retire with your time? I mean, you've been so busy with the hospital.
Well, I tell everybody this. When I was young, my grandfather told me that 90% of the fish are caught by 10% of the fishermen, and it was his job to see that I wound up in that 10% of the fishermen that caught the fish. I have two wonderful grandsons. My daughters are outstanding anglers, and I'm going to make sure that my grandsons have every opportunity to fall into that same category. I'm going to do that, spend time with my wife and family, be involved in the river, and then I'll figure it out from there. But I'll stay involved and I'll stay active. I love this town. I've lived an amazing life, and much of it is due to this community and the people who live here.
Again, we're speaking with Rob Lord. He's retiring from Cleveland Clinic Martin Health after 23 years at the end of this year. And again, you say it better than I, but it's going to take two doctors to replace this one lawyer.
Well,
so
I'm excited to see what my successors do. I know they'll do a fantastic job.
It will be, but we're excited that you're still going to be around town and still active in the community. And I'm sure I'll have you back on the show in a different capacity as a board member at the Florida Oceanographic Society out there. So it's also important. And speaking of the water, next week I'm going to have Captain Mike Connor on. He's the Indian River Keeper here, and he has a lot of updates. He's been busy over the summer. I know he just met with Senator Rubio, so we'll see what that was all about. But a lot of great updates. And also going back to Foghat, the week after that, we're going to have Tony Stevens. He's going to call in from the UK in a very special show. We're going to be talking about the fashion of the rockers of the 70s and the 80s.
Well, it's asking about this. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a good friend of mine and I traveled down in my 1959 Volkswagen Beetle, and this was about 76, 77, and went to a Foghat concert at the old Palm Beach Auditorium. So they remember that. I was there that night.
Oh my gosh, Tony Stevens, I'm going to be asking you about that. I don't know if you're still online, but that is great. What's great memories. So it's going to be a great show. We've got some photos of some of the old clothes and stuff that they had. And one of the designers on Facebook said, boy, those Foghat members, they wore them tight. So
they were a good band. I enjoyed Foghat very much.
Well, Tony comes back over. He has Tony Stevens Slow Ride. So yes, if we ever get over COVID, we're gonna have to go and enjoy one of those concerts. It's awesome. So appreciate it again, Rob Lord. Thank you for everything you've done. We wish you so well on the next step here in life and enjoying retirement, enjoying the family, the grandbabies. That's the best.
Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely the best. So we'll see you next week. Tune in at 10 a.m. We're going to have, again, Captain Mike Connor, the Indian River Keeper, and then Tony Stevens the week after that. Thanks for tuning in.